Hey there, good day everybody. I'm Steve Farrell and I'm a co-founder and the executive director of Humanities Team. I'm coming to you live from our Humanities Team studio here in Boulder, Colorado. And you can see on the screen I've got an esteemed guest with me today, Dr. Stephen Farmer. I'm going to give him a proper introduction in a moment, but let me just shout out to you, Stephen. Thank you for joining me here today.
My pleasure, believe me. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, we've got just a fine program in store. We say we're going to go 30 minutes. Sometimes we go a little longer. Let me start just by shouting out to any of the friends of Dr. Stephen Farmer that are out there. You know, big shout out to you, Humanities Team friends that are on our social media channels, especially Facebook and YouTube. Humanities Stream members that are here in the studio with us in the green room. Shout out to you. And finally, the Sign Network and John Raymer, shout out to you. So thanks everybody for joining us. We've got a really exciting program in store for you. In our 20 years as a 501c3 nonprofit, we've never done a program on spirit animals. And you might say, what does that mean? Good, because we're going to tell you what that means here shortly. It's an exciting and important topic. This is a live program. So if you're out on Facebook or YouTube and you want to get a question to Dr. Stephen Farmer, just throw it in the chat. Most of those questions will come back to us here in the studio, and I can get them to him here during the program. So as we get started, I want to thank Ariel Patricia. So she is the publisher for the Sentient series. She is the CEO of the Sacred Stories Publishing that has one of Dr. Stephen Farmer's books called Animals, Personal Tales of Encounters with Spirit Animals. She's also my publisher for my book, A New Universal Dream. So thank you to Ariel for helping us set up this program. Okay, let me go ahead and give a proper introduction to Dr. Stephen Farmer so you know who he is. He is the best-selling author of Animals, Personal Tales of Encounters with Spirit Animals, a book in the Common Sentience series. The book's Animal Spirit Guides, Earth Magic, and other bestsellers. He is a licensed psychotherapist and somatic therapist, shamanic healer, an ordained minister, and a former college professor. Dr. Farmer's unique approach as a psycho-spiritual healer is a result of his in-depth studies of spiritual transformation, trauma recovery, shamanism, hypnotherapy, breathwork, and energy psychology. Dr. Farmer has a BA in psychology from the University of California, an MA in counseling psychology from Chapman University, and a PhD from Madison University. He serves on the board of the Society for Shamanic Practice. And welcome again here, Dr. Stephen Farmer. Really good to have you with us.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, that's quite a bit. That I guess I've been busy, huh?
Yeah, you have indeed. You know, and I got to know you just a little bit there in the green room. Boy, you've got your hands in a lot of things. So nice that you can make time to come on our program to talk about your book and spirit animals. Let's just start right up at the very top with spirit animals because this is, I think, a very relevant topic. And I'm not sure a lot of people have studied it, so we've all kind of put our own thoughts together on what spirit animals might be. But how would you describe spirit animals, Stephen?
Well, Steve, it's something that our long ago ancestors knew. You know, it's just a given that the world communicates. Certainly animals, and they're the most accessible, but also the plant beings, the tree beings. You know, I have a friend of mine, Eva Blacktail Swan, nearby in Colorado, that goes out on the land every morning and receives messages, you know, from the land, from the various beings in the land. So it's something that in Western civilization is just really coming to the front, you know, along with the expansion of human consciousness that's occurring. Specifically with spirit animals, spirit, great spirit or God or source, whatever you want to give the name, or the force, speaks through or communicates through, more accurately, through these animals, especially when an animal shows up in an unusual way and or repeatedly in a short space of time. That's what to look for. For instance, a hawk flies over my head. Okay, wow, that's unusual. I've seen hawks before, but wow, one flies over my head. Or one of the stories in the book Animals, the Common Sentience book, that I wrote about was the experience with the grasshopper. I was sitting in my studio. Actually, I lived in Hawaii for a period of time, and I was sitting in my office studio, and the sliding glass door was open, and I was thinking about actually recording some of my original songs, music. And I was nervous about it. I wasn't sure whether the songs were good enough, et cetera, et cetera. And so this grasshopper jumps in from the side and lands right in front of my computer. Now, I would say that's unusual.
Right.
Not unusual maybe to see a grasshopper, but one that lands in front of the computer. And so I go, okay, actually what I said out loud was, okay, Mr. Animal Spirit Guides guy, what's the meaning? What's happening here? And the first thing that I got, and it was a thought that came to me, leap to it. Using the metaphor of that grasshopper jumping in here at the time I'm thinking about this. So our consciousness connected in some fashion. And I perceived a message that said, go for it, basically, leap to it. And then I thought, well, I'll look it up in my book, one of my other books, Animal Spirit Guides. Okay, grasshopper, where's grasshopper? Oh, I didn't include grasshopper. Okay, so do the thing that most people would do, and I advise too, is go to the search engine and go grasshopper, spirit animal, grasshopper, totem animal, whatever. And the one piece that caught my eye, Steve, was the male grasshopper sings to attract the female, and that was it. So I went to the studio and did some recording, etc. That's a good example, and it's in the book Animals, the Common Sentience book as well. A good example of a spirit animal, of the consciousness in communication with that animal. There's that collaborative process that's going on. I am thinking about something, an animal in the physical form shows up, and it could be symbolically. I might have dreamed about a grasshopper, but either physically or symbolically, when they show up in an unusual way and or repeatedly, that's a big deal. And so I encourage people, pay attention to this. There may just be a message for you.
Wow, no kidding. So let me bring in a few things. I mentioned my dog, but let me, before I go there to today, because today has been quite interesting. I walk my dog early in the morning, and we do this real beautiful hike. Now there was a dove that was there. There aren't that many dove in Boulder. I don't see a lot of them. But there was a dove that just was right there on a fence and kind of looking at me for a while. And I stopped and thought, wow, that's neat. I wonder what the symbolism might be in that. And then we did another broadcast this morning, an hour-long broadcast with two people in the Holo movement and evolutionary leaders that are all about, this awakening oneness in the world and so on. And I was sitting right here. I can look out. There's a sky, here through the window when I look out. And twice, a blue heron flew by, which you don't see a lot of blue heron, and from the couch twice see one fly by right in the middle of my broadcast. I thought, wow, I wonder what that means. So I have a couple things here today that are quite interesting.
Oh, very interesting. Unusual. There we go. Good examples of unusual. Now, again, not that seeing a dove is necessarily by itself unusual, but for you, it was brought to your attention somehow.
Yeah.
And
right.
There's actually, I outlined 3 ways that you can discern the message. One, look it up. Look up dove, spirit animal, and see what comes up, on a search engine. So that's a possibility. Second way is we can use look at the physical characteristics or the characteristics in general of that particular animal and deduce a message from that. We might have associations with that particular animal, and that could be the message. The third one, and this is where it gets interesting, and is something that anyone can develop, is to receive a direct communication, not just the dove, the physical dove, but as a representative of the spirit of dove or dove spirit. And I can go through real quickly, how you do that, but it takes practice to do that. Number 3. So a dove typically is associated with peace, love, etc. So perhaps the message would be, okay, you need to experience a greater sense of peace. That's a possibility that visitation was indicating to you. I get something else also, but when it comes down to the possible meanings you'd find, it could be dove, could be gentle with yourself, things like that we associate with dove. You think about it, it's very intuitive too. That makes sense. Oh yeah,
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the thought that came to me when I saw the dove, and again, I don't see these very often, is that it was like a confirming thing of just kind of giving my, where you're in service to kind of the world around you. Some people use the term surrender to, that it was kind of a sign of, good, we're where we want to be here, on this journey.
Yes.
It felt like a confirming thing when I saw that dove.
And I'm glad you trusted that, because that's more direct revelation. That's the third one I mentioned. You had a thought, you had a feeling, you got a message very directly from the spirit of dove, represented again by the physical animal. That it's more the dove was more than just a symbol. It really actually was a courier or a messenger for you. That you're on the right track. Way to go. Good for you, because the dove is not an uncommon symbol for peace, and for that sort of characteristic. So you got the message directly. Let me comment on this too, and then we'll get to the blue heron. There's roughly about 3 ways that you can get a message. And I encourage people to go ahead and say, well, dove spirit, what message do you have for me? Grasshopper spirit, what's your message? So that you get that information directly.
Right.
It could be a sensation in your body as a response to the question. You could hear it in your inner voice, the voice in your mind. You could also hear it outside you. Something outside externally might be part of the message. The other would be vision. You close your eyes and you get an image of something, or you get some combination of those 3, sometimes called intuition.
Right.
But it's important I think it's useful to know, what are your strengths? Which ones do you rely on? For instance, I rely on my inner voice. I hear the voice of spirit speaking to me in that way. More so than visual, I also get messages from the sensations in my body. So I've learned to pay close attention to those, generally in any kind of, you could say, spiritual work, but specifically for spirit animals. So it's useful to know that. If you're a highly visual person, that's probably, you're going to rely on that a little bit more. Whereas auditory, which I count myself there, or sensory, both of those are pretty strong with me. So I've learned to rely on those, and I do get visions, inner impressions, mind's eye sort of thing. So good for you. That's how you determine the message. That the dove's medicine, as has sometimes been called, is presenting to you a confirmation that you're on the right path.
Yeah, that was the first thing my mind went to, especially when I turned around and it just stayed there, kind of watching us as we were walking by. And as I mentioned at the start of this program, this is really a terrific program, because it's all been just intuitive, for me, the spirit animal thing. I've actually believed quite strongly in the spirit animal concept for my whole life, but I've never talked to an expert here until we met today. So fantastic. And spirit animals, boy, this can all bring a lot to your life, can't it? If we can see these as the signs that they are. Another guidepost on this path, journey during life.
Yeah, and there's other aspects to this realm, if you will, of spirit animals. One is often I get stories, and there's a story in this book, Animals, also. Dr. Siegel, Bernie Siegel, contributed. I'll tell you, encapsulate that story. But it's that very often after someone we love dies, it's amazing that we'll have a visitation, a specific visitation from a spirit animal. Some people say, well, that's my aunt that just died. And I think it's more like a courier or a messenger. Like, to use the example of dove, I've heard this probably about 3 or 4 times from different people. The dove lands on the table outside while you're having tea or coffee. And you just know, that grandma sent this dove, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Right.
Bernie, Dr. Siegel talks about a patient that died on Kauai. She went to Kauai. This is open in the book, so I'm not giving away something that's confidential. She went to reconcile things with her mother in Kauai and then chose to die there. Well, he and his wife went to Kauai, and there's this amazing story in there about this butterfly that landed on his wife's shoulder, and then she looked and it left again, and she walks in and says, "Oh, the butterfly left," and she looks over and it's still with her, and that butterfly stayed with them for, I think it was 2 or 3 days. And Bernie said he just knew, this is the intuition, okay? He just knew that was the spirit of his deceased patient that had gone to Kauai. So came to visit and say, hi, hey, I'm cool. I've transformed, often a symbol of transformation, as a butterfly, cocoon to butterfly, miraculous process.
Yeah.
But anyway, things like that, where someone, an animal, a physical animal visits you either in a dream, like a symbol, or in the physical realm, like Dr. Siegel's story. You just know that that's a message, or some people say that is actually the spirit of, in this case for Bernie, that's the spirit of this patient that went to Kauai to close things off with her mother and to die. Very poetic.
Boy, no kidding. Yeah, very powerful too. Yeah. So, boy, let's go deeper on this your book, Animals, Personal Encounters with Spirit Animals. And I know you're bringing in an example here, but can you tell us more about this book? It's fascinating, and I assume it's available on Amazon, right? Another Barnes & Noble. Animals, Personal Encounters with Spirit Animals, this book.
Yeah, Ariel Patricia, the publisher, approached me because I'm known for this, described this series, Sentience series, and said, hey, do you want to be part of this? I said, sure, I'd love to. So on my end of it, it was writing about what I've just been talking about, putting something in the front about how do you discern that, how do you tell the message, et cetera, as much as possible that I could convey about what I've experienced and what I know, what I know about working with spirit animals. And then there was a closing piece too. So bookends, basically, the front piece and then the back piece. And then I and Ariel solicited stories of encounters, like it says, personal tales of encounters with spirit animals. And there's some amazing stories in there. If I may share another one, if that's all right.
Please do, yeah.
I'll try to condense it, but an animal communicator, which is a little different than what I do. Animal communicators, they might go to your dog, for instance, and tune in to see, okay, what's going on in the dog? What's happening? What do they want that maybe you try to figure out? And this animal communicator was called to be with this horse of a friend that she knew that was obviously dying. And they had called the vet to come over and put them through a euthanize the horse. The animal communicator gets there, meets the horse can't stand, and then as soon as she walks in the room, the horse stood up, and the owner's going, what's the deal here? She hasn't stood up, for 3 days or something like that. She's
Right.
really on her way. And so the communicator tuned in, and had basically a conversation, with this horse. And she got this vision of this young girl, this teenage girl riding the horse and just in the wind, it's just fantastic vision that the horse was communicating to her, was showing her visually. So she said, oh, that's interesting. Okay. And then one thing led to another, and there were some other things that the horse communicated. And then this always makes me emotional because I've read this story twice and I just reviewed it again before our show. The horse said to her, I took it from her. She's going, what? I took it from her. And come to find out that the girl who was connected to the horse and was the one in the visions that she was seeing, the horse was communicating to her, had been in the hospital for something like 2 months with a brain tumor.
Oh my gosh.
And the horse, get this is like, the horse had a huge tumor, and that's what was killing the horse. And it looked like a brain, as described by the writer. And that's what, so the horse took this on out of his love for this human being, this young girl that was riding her. She was discharged. The doctors at the hospital were going, I don't know how this happened, but she's cured. How about that one? That's, I think, amongst all the stories in the book, that one is one of the most moving. To have that sort of miraculous connection with not just a spirit animal, but the physical animal as well.
Yeah, so like almost universal law says that could happen, that a animal could take it from the person, in this case, which, wow, what an astounding story, huh? Yeah, talking about a story of love and healing. Wow, amazing.
Yeah, and that's Steve, that's a very, very dramatic story, very real life drama. And yet, I think there's, I believe, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, that we need as much guidance as we can, as we walk through life, especially during this period of time, the context of which we're dealing with, changes in the earth, etc. We're discovering, there's more galaxies out there than we ever conceived of, that we're just kind of like a little small piece of the universe when it comes down to it. And yet it's also very personal because we live here. This is the planet we live on. So how can we take care of it? What's going on with this elevation of consciousness, which, again, you're serving that very, very well. You and your team are serving that very well with what you're doing. So here we go. This is one way that you can receive guidance. You can go to a psychic. You can go to a medium. I do. I mean, I think they're valuable, absolutely valuable. You've had guests like that on your program, from what you had said earlier. And this is one of those things like, yes, unlike the warnings say, don't do this at home. I'm saying, yes, do this at home. Be aware, open your vision, open your eyes, open your heart to these possibilities that the animal that's visiting you or is appearing to you in an unusual way, like the blue heron, there's a collaborative process going on with the consciousness expressing as that blue heron and the consciousness expressing as you, and boom, you meet in the middle, and then you just got to figure out what the message is. And it's not that hard to do, as we found, like with the dove.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's not. I mean, I think, we're in the shift of the ages here on this planet now, where, in fact, this morning we were describing it as kind of the Galileo moment, where Galileo comes along. There are all of these prevailing beliefs of the geocentric, everything's revolving around the Earth, and science and astronomy didn't really have it right. And Galileo was serving up, look, it's not really what we've thought here. It's really quite different. And in some ways, we've got our own moment here, where these limiting beliefs of we're separate and from each other, and that we go to bones and dust, and the American dream thing is maybe the way to go, just power, fame, and fortune. And it's all just getting stood on its head, where we understand we're a part of the great web of life, that the James Webb Telescope, maybe it is surfacing now to give us perspective, on just all of this life that is being animated out there, in this multiverse, of which we are just a teeny tiny part. And it's just, it's eye-opening to, it's self-defining. There's a whole new self-identification that can and that usually does come out of this when we see who we really are versus what we thought we were going through grade school, high school, and college.
So true. Well stated, too. I must say, well stated, too. I was thinking, I shared with you, I'm right in the midst of writing an article about perspective, and bringing all that in, how many galaxies in our universe, how many universes are there, to take it to stretch out. And I want to bring it back to, and what a miracle that this human being is here. Wow. There's no real, we can go through all sorts of words about that, but it really comes down to a feeling of awe. Just like the miraculousness of this, the opportunity to experience life in all of its different colors and variations, including the suffering, as well as the joy, including community, including, knowing things like this, that there's a revival going on of ancestral wisdom. I think it's beautiful. This being a piece of it is being able to receive communications, guidance, etc., from the animals, and specifically the spirit animals. Wow. Yeah. It is a wow.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, and it makes sense that God would use all of creation, animal kingdom. Why not? As this wind is at our back, so to speak, that we would find, the animal kingdom is here as a part of this whole grand unfolding too. You being used as we are to unfold into this more loving, greater coherence, higher purpose, species. I love this whole, in your book, you get into this whole spiritual allies thing too, which that brings me to my dog that I talked about, our Portuguese water dog, who feels like just a total spiritual ally. I've felt that way since she came into our home over 11 years ago. And that's a whole piece of this too, isn't it?
It really is. Yeah, that we have connections, especially, I'm a dog person as well as a cat person. I like them both, So you say, well, you're a cat person or a dog person. No, I like them both, they're cool. But I must say, like this guy over here, one of my two dogs is, this is his spot over here on my couch. And he's laid out on the couch now. And it's amazing the communication that takes place in such a simple way with our allies, our spirit allies. Samson, I have another dog, almost 9 years old. Samson is a big yellow lab, totally empathic and sensitive. If you say anything, harsh words or loud sounds, he either, if it's I said something the other day, he was sitting here by my desk, and I said, shoot, or a version of that anyway, and kind of loud. He just kind of goes, whoa, okay, dude, man, I'm out of here. Harsh words, ooh. And I know that about him. And then the other is when someone's hurt, or if I bang my knee or something, like that, I go, oh. He's like right there. He comes up and puts his head against my leg, to soothe and comfort me. Oh. Isn't that amazing?
That's amazing.
I mean, they're just amazing like that. This guy here, this guy being Scout, my other dog, younger, 2.5 years old, he has gotten to a point where we are just solid with our communication. I can tell what he wants. How do I know? I hear it. I feel it. I may see it. Like I said, visual, auditory, or sensory. That's how we get those communications as well. And I don't pretend to be an animal communicator. I get pretty good at it sometimes, especially with the ones I'm close to. But what intrigues me is this realm here of what we're talking about, spirit animals and spirit allies, like you said, having an ally, domesticated animal or otherwise. I had a short story. Owl. Or an owl, I should say. I point out here because that's generally where I hear him. I'll walk out the front door and I'll hear this.
Right.
And I'll sing back. That owl, yes, he represents a spirit animal as well, but even the physical animal, that owl followed us on my dog walk all the way to our local park, where we
Wow.
continued to sing with each other.
Jeez, that is something.
Guess what one of the messages was when I tuned into the spirit, owl spirit.
No,
just
what?
from that, what I sing. I said I'm a wannabe rock and roll, rock and roll star. I've given up that dream many years, but
Right.
I still play and I sing, and I sometimes neglect that. And I know that it's good heart medicine, to play and sing. So Owl came to me not only to just have fun, which we did singing to each other, but when I said, "What's the message here?" it was like, of course, duh.
Right.
Stephen,
right.
you got to get back to singing, that sort of thing. See what the magic of that? I just love it.
That's a great story. That is. Yeah. And by the way, I thought I was the only, I walk my dog every morning, and birds are often singing, and then I'll whistle, and I'm hoping neighbors aren't around. So I'll go ahead and I'll out myself here on this because you're sharing the same thing. I have to say though, I haven't noticed any of them ever following me. Sometimes they'll kind of whistle back, but that's
Nice.
that's about the extent of what I get going on that one.
That's a great story, Steve. Great one. Yeah.
So now Marie came in with a question, but before I get to it, let me just ask this question. How does reciprocity apply to spirit animals? I'm really curious about that one.
Yeah. I like when I teach this or somebody has a question about one or something like that, I encourage this reciprocity. And I love that word. It was used fair amount with Braiding Sweetgrass, this incredible book, one of my top 10 books, by Robin Wall Kimmerer, Braiding Sweetgrass. And she used that term a lot. She's a biologist and Native American. So it's a really nice synthesis of her work that she brings and tells stories about in the book. So when you start working with spirit animals, I suggest to give something back to the animal kingdom. Let's say with owl, it wouldn't be necessarily just owls or birds, but to give back, with sincerity and generosity to the animal kingdom. So how do you do that? Some people rescue pets. They have rescue dogs or rescue cats or animals like that. Mm-hmm. Caring for animals, like your dog, that's a give back, and doing it with consciousness. Thank you for your beingness. Thank you for being with me. The other is donate some time. The local humane society or the shelter. There's a group here called ARK, A-R-K, and they do this down at PetSmart, our local, one of the local pet stores. I think 3 or 4 days a week, they bring the kittens and the cats that have been rescued. And they're all volunteers. So there's a give back. Another is find an organization, a reputable organization that is working on behalf of the animals. Example for me is Defenders of Wildlife. That's one of my favorites. And Humane Society, the U.S., a certain portion of my royalties goes to either of those two. Oceana would be the third one. Oceana's mission is to help clean up the oceans. And I think everybody knows about Humane Society. Defenders of Wildlife focuses a lot on wolves and taking care of wolves so they're not killed and such like that. So, something just happened to the computer. There we go. So anyway, that's the give back. That's the reciprocity, in exchange. And just expressing your gratitude. The frequency and vibration of gratitude, based on what I did some research on for an article, is like right next to love.
Right. Yeah. I'm with you.
Makes sense.
It makes so much sense. Yeah. Just creating these loops of reciprocity, of gratitude, of positive creation. Where it's all about stewarding the earth and taking care of each other here on the earth. So just comes back to the simple stuff, doesn't it? Well, let
Yeah,
me
not
read
a,
this question.
go ahead.
I'll read this question from Marie. She says, a few years ago, my Vietnam veteran husband was in bad shape with PTSD. He was in a hospital in South Dakota for around 6 months trying to heal. I and our 3 children remained in Colorado. Financially, we weren't in good shape, and I spent a lot of time worrying. One day during this time, I was stopped at a red light, and I said out loud, God, give me a sign that everything is going to be all right. Suddenly, here in Colorado, a gorgeous tropical bird landed on the hood of my car. And she's asking you, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, first thing, I got an image. Remember what I was saying, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, an image. I have no idea what kind of bird it was or anything like that. But my image that showed up just as you described it, from landing on the hood of her car, very colorful. And what gives me chills. So I trust that. There's a body reaction, that says I'm on track here,
Right.
in terms of what I'm saying. What I get from that experience is to really let your life be more colorful, that it's so easy, understandably, to kind of drift into that zone of sadness and depression, maybe even despair, but to bring more color into your life. And that could be literally more color. Wear colorful clothes. It could be a metaphor for more color in your life, variety, do something different, try a different, break your routines, shake things up a little bit. Ask the spirit of this bird to tend to her husband, to bring that healing power to her husband, and not the bird, but the bird spirit, whatever bird that is.
Right.
And just continue to thank that bird or the spirit, bird spirit. It sounds funny to say bird spirit, but bird spirit, for tending to her husband, sending love and colorfulness. Anyway, that's what I get. I think that's
Yeah. That's beautiful.
And I'm sorry, another hit, just real quick. And again, this is a body rush, a body sensation, just like jolted through my body. And again, this makes me emotional, but I trust that. That's just part of the reading. That's going to help heal your husband of the PTSD.
Yeah.
So that's a contribution you can make. And he doesn't even have to know about it, by the way.
Right.
Just keep working it. Thank you. Thank you, bird. Thank you. Look up, find out what the name of the bird if you want. It doesn't really matter, but thank you. Anyway, that's my take.
Yeah. Boy, that's a beautiful story. And just, a gorgeous, colorful bird landing on the hood right as that prayer is shared. That's oh my God. Talking about a miracle. There you go.
Yeah.
That just was not a random thing. But by the way, one of the things that the mediums share with us, we work, with Humanities Team, we've got the streaming platform, so we do get to work with the leaders all over the world in transformational education. The mediums share, do not just ever consider these things random. Don't do that. You're going to discourage this process, these miracles, these things from happening. They're actually happening for a reason. They're there to guide you, support you, and to even talk out loud, say thank you, and share whatever it is that's coming to you, and that then will bring more of this on. Too often they share. We just want to kind of say, oh, it couldn't have been my mother or my father, or in the afterlife or something, or in this case, a bird that didn't have meaning. We don't want to do that because we're discouraging then this positive creation when we do that.
Right. A word that comes to mind is coincidence.
Yeah.
Often what we'll do with, not often what we'll do, but I think one way to respond to something like that, wow, what a coincidence. But I always like this saying I heard years ago, a coincidence is a miracle where God remains anonymous.
Right. Yeah. I like that.
Use the word. Yeah. Isn't that cool? Yeah. Like we missed it. These are little miracles and sometimes big miracles. Like that's a pretty big miracle. And appreciate it for the miraculousness of life and how these things present themselves.
Yeah. There you go. I like that. That's perfect. Let's leave it on that high note. That's a great place to leave this program. So, boy, very nice being with you, Dr. Stephen Farmer, who has this spirit animals is among the great contributions he brings to the world. There are understanding of them and how to be in reciprocity with them, etc. In this book, Animals: Personal Tales of Encounters with Spirit Animals. Check that out, at Amazon, Barnes and Noble. I want to thank you, of course, Dr. Stephen Farmer, for spending this time with me. And then we can pull the camera back. I will just thank the crew here that supports me and Humanities Team. There's Jim Gray, who's over there. I'm on the couch. That's Jim over there. That's made sure we stayed up, didn't go down. Stephen's coming in from Southern California. I'm coming in from Boulder. So sometimes you fly through turbulence doing these live programs. I want to also thank Nanette Kennedy, Dee Meyer, Andy Guski, Garth Catterall, just all of the team, Karen Watson, that support me and Humanities Team make these live broadcasts possible. They publicize them out on our website and out on social media. So thank you guys for helping to make another successful broadcast happen. Thank you. And last, definitely not least, viewers, thanks for spending a little time with us. Wow, I sure learned a lot. Very important and very interesting. So thanks so much for spending this quality time with us, Stephen. This was fantastic.
My pleasure. You're very, very welcome. And Steve, thank you and the team also for doing the work you're doing in the world. We need everybody on the front line these days, especially these days. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Back at you. Keep Godspeed to you, and look forward to doing something with you again here, Stephen. This was really terrific.
Happy to do so anytime. All right. Thanks, Steve.
Okay. Thank you. Have a great rest of the day. Take care, everybody.
All right, you too.
Okay.
Take care, everybody.